We picture them as golden gods, immortalized in stone, but the reality of an Egyptian pharaoh's existence was a haunting tapestry of divine duty and chilling darkness. We see the gold, the pyramids, the powerful statues, but we miss the profound and often terrifying humanity trapped within that divine shell. Welcome to Winds of Thought, where we look beyond the surface of history. The lives of these so-called god kings were a brutal paradox of unimaginable luxury and profound spiritual terror, a constant performance where a single misstep could allegedly doom an entire civilization. Before we uncover the true weight of the double crown, tell us in the comments, which ancient ruler from any empire fascinates you the most? Now, let's pull back the gilded curtain on a world where one individual held the power of life, death, and eternity in their hands, and explore the immense cost that came with it. Imagine a land utterly defined by a single, life-giving river cutting through a vast and scorching desert. A land where the sun was a relentless god and the annual flood was a divine promise. Here, for over 3,000 years, a civilization flourished with a stability that is almost incomprehensible to us today. And at the absolute center of this universe was the Pharaoh. He was not merely a political leader or a king. He was considered the living incarnation of the falcon god Horus, a divine bridge between the world of the gods and the realm of humanity. His every action, from the most grand state decree to the most personal mourning ritual, was not just a matter of policy, but a vital act believed to maintain Ma'at, the cosmic balance, order, and justice that held the terrifying forces of chaos and disorder at bay. This divine status, while granting him absolute authority, came at a terrifying price, one that warped their lives, their families, and their very minds in ways we are only beginning to fully understand. The god was also a prisoner. To truly grasp this, let's walk through a day in the life of a new kingdom pharaoh. It was not a life of leisure, but a meticulously choreographed and relentless performance of power and piety from dawn until dusk. His morning began not with a casual stretch, but with an elaborate and symbolic cleansing ceremony. A small army of servants and priests attended to him. They would meticulously shave his entire body smooth to avoid lice and impurities, line his eyes with striking kohl not just for beauty but to ward off evil spirits and infections, and anoint his limbs with fragrant, precious oils like myrrh and frankincense. This was not vanity. It was a ritual of purification, preparing the vessel of the god for his daily duties. He was then dressed in the finest, whitest linens and the heavy, symbolic regalia of his office. This included the skent, the double crown of a unified Egypt, the crook to symbolize his role as shepherd of his people, and the flail, representing his power to smite his enemies. Each piece was imbued with history and magic. Thus transformed from a man into a living icon, his day of sacred duty began. The performance was on. First, and most crucially, came the vital temple rituals. As the high priest of every cult in Egypt, only he could make the crucial offerings and recite the precise incantations to deities like Ra, the sun god, or Osiris, lord of the underworld. The entire Egyptian worldview rested on a simple, terrifying bargain. The gods provided order, the Nile's flood, and military victory, and in return, the pharaoh, through perfect ritual, provided them with worship and offerings. The Egyptians believed that if these rites were performed with even the slightest error, the gods might grow angry and withdraw their favor, leading to famine, plague, social chaos, and the end of the world as they knew it. The psychological pressure on one man to perform flawlessly every single day was astronomical. After spending the morning appeasing the gods, he would then turn to governing his earthly empire, meeting with his vizier, the most powerful official in the land. He would hear reports from across the Nile Valley, settle legal disputes that could not be resolved lower down, and manage everything from national grain stores and taxation to ambitious monumental construction projects. His word was absolute law, with no court or constitution to appeal to. He could grant life or decree death with a nod. Yet, this absolute power did not bring security. It created a world of intense, inescapable paranoia. The pharaoh was trapped in the most luxurious gilded cage ever built. He was surrounded by constant, subtle dangers, both real and supernatural. His life was governed by a web of obsessive superstitions. He might only be permitted to enter a room with his right foot first to ward off evil spirits. He would be careful to never let his shadow fall upon a priest or a sacred statue, lest he incur divine wrath. Every meal, no matter how sumptuous, was tasted for poison by a trusted servant. The weight of the crown was a burden no mortal was built to bear. The royal court itself was a viper's nest of intrigue, where his own family members, ambitious courtiers, and foreign dignitaries constantly plotted for influence, wealth, and power. In this pressure cooker, the most intimate human relationships became twisted. The relentless quest to produce a legitimate male heir often led pharaohs into the most disturbing of all royal practices, institutionalized incest. To keep the royal bloodline pure and unquestionably divine, pharaohs frequently married their own sisters, half-sisters, and in some shocking cases, even their own daughters. This practice, while morally abhorrent to us, was seen as emulating the gods themselves, like Osiris, who married his sister Isis. It was a theological imperative, a way to keep the sacred essence contained within a single, holy family. But the genetic consequences of this were predictably devastating. The boy king Tutankhamun, for instance, was almost certainly the product of a union between the pharaoh Akhenaten and one of his sisters. Modern CT scans of his mummy reveal a cleft palate, a club foot, and multiple bone diseases that would have required him to use a cane to walk. He suffered from multiple bouts of malaria and a severe compound fracture in his leg that, combined with his weakened state, likely led to his death at just 18 or 19. His short, pained life stands as a stark testament to the terrible physical price paid for this obsessive dedication to divine bloodlines. But the darkness woven into the fabric of a pharaoh's life didn't end with the cutthroat politics of the royal court or the twisted family tree. The pharaoh's ultimate focus, the true obsession that defined his reign and consumed his treasury, was not on his earthly rule, but on his eternal one. The ancient Egyptian obsession with the afterlife is legendary, and for the pharaoh, it was an all-consuming, lifelong passion that dwarfed all other concerns. They did not see death as an end, but as a transformation, a journey to a perfect, mirrored existence in the blissful field of reeds. This life was merely a prelude, a temporary station. To secure this glorious forever, they engaged in the most famous of all Egyptian practices, the art and science of mummification. For 70 days, teams of skilled royal embalmers, who were also priests, worked in secret locations to preserve the pharaoh's body. They meticulously removed the internal organs, preserving them in sacred canopic jars, dried the flesh with natron salts, and wrapped the body in hundreds of yards of linen bandages, placing amulets within the wrappings for protection. The body was then sealed within a nest of coffins, often made of precious wood and gold, culminating in that iconic golden death mask, a perfect, idealized, and immortalized face for the god king to present to the deities of the underworld. But a perfectly preserved body, a vessel for the soul, needed an equally perfect and eternal home. It needed a fortress for eternity. This primal drive for an indestructible tomb led to the single most iconic and enduring structures in all of human history, the pyramids. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built for the 4th dynasty pharaoh Khufu around 2580 BC, remains a staggering, almost alien feat of engineering. It contains an estimated 2.3 million limestone blocks, each weighing several tons. It stood as the tallest man-made structure on Earth for over 3,800 years, and was so precisely aligned with the cardinal points that modern architects still marvel at its accuracy. It was not merely a tomb. It was a colossal resurrection machine, a cosmological engine designed to use precise angles and celestial alignment to launch the pharaoh's soul directly to the imperishable stars, to join the sun god Ra in his eternal cycle. The cost in human labor and resources was immense, requiring decades of back-breaking work from thousands of conscripted laborers, who were not slaves, but farmers working during the Nile's flood season. They toiled under the brutal sun to realize one man's dream of immortality. But for some of the earliest pharaohs, even this monumental effort wasn't enough. They were not content to go into the afterlife alone. They wanted to take their entire court and comforts with them. Archaeological evidence from the very dawn of Egyptian history reveals the most chilling and ethically jarring practice of all: retainer sacrifice. In the tombs of First Dynasty pharaohs, like Jur at the sacred site of Abydos, archaeologists have found the bodies of hundreds of servants, guards, administrators, and court officials buried in neat rows surrounding the king's central burial chamber. These individuals were not buried there after dying of natural causes. They were killed, most likely by strangulation or a sharp blow to the head, specifically to accompany their master into the afterlife. They were posed in death as they were in life, ready to serve, to guard, and to entertain for all eternity. The scale is horrifying to contemplate. Imagine the sheer terror of those chosen for this grim honor. This practice, thankfully, largely faded out after the Old Kingdom, replaced by small servant statues called shabtas, but it highlights the absolute, terrifying power a pharaoh wielded, a power so absolute it was believed to extend beyond the grave, commanding the very lives of his subjects in death as in life. To see how this terrifying duality of brilliance and brutality played out, we need to look at the specific rulers who embodied it. Consider the long reign of Ramesses II, known to history as Ramesses the Great. He ruled Egypt for an astonishing 66 years during the 19th dynasty, fathered over 100 children, and covered the land from Nubia to the Delta in monumental temples, like the awe-inspiring Abu Simbel and his massive mortuary temple, the Ramesseum. He was a master of propaganda and self-promotion, even carving his name and image over the monuments of previous pharaohs to claim their achievements as his own. His reign marked a golden age of imperial power, military might, and unparalleled architectural achievement. Yet, beneath this glittering surface, evidence from his reign suggests that upon his death, some of his own concubines and household staff were ritually sacrificed to serve him forever in the next world. His legacy, therefore, is a complex tapestry of glorious triumph and cultural zenith, built upon a foundation of ruthless exploitation and the exercise of absolute life and death power. In stark contrast stands the enigmatic figure of the heretic pharaoh, Akhenaten. In a religious revolution that shook Egypt to its very core in the 14th century BC, he abruptly abandoned the entire pantheon of gods, including the powerful state god Ammonius, to worship a single, abstract deity, the Aten, or the sun disk. He moved the capital to a brand new, purpose-built city in the middle of the desert called Akhenaten, changed his name from Amenhotep IV, and instituted a radical, fluid new style of art that depicted the royal family in strangely elongated and androgynous forms. This was a pharaoh using his absolute power to challenge 1,000 years of theological tradition. But his revolution was fragile. After his death, the powerful priesthood he had disenfranchised struck back. His name was systematically chiseled from monuments, his city was abandoned to the sand, and the old gods were restored with a vengeance. His story is one of a pharaoh so powerful he could single-handedly attempt to redefine reality for millions, and yet so ultimately vulnerable that his legacy was almost completely erased from history, a cautionary tale of overreach. This dramatic family saga leads us directly to his son, the most famous pharaoh of all, whose story reveals the profound fragility hidden beneath the gold. The discovery of Tutankhamun's nearly intact tomb by Howard Carter in 1922 ignited a global fascination with the pharaohs that burns brightly to this day. The dazzling gold, the exquisite jewelry, the golden throne, the chariots, the everyday objects. It was a time capsule of unimaginable royal wealth and a perfect snapshot of the pharaoh's obsessive, meticulous preparation for the afterlife. The world saw the treasure and imagined a life of similar splendor. Yet, the scientific analysis of his mummy tells a very different story. For all his legendary treasure, Tutankhamun was a physically weak, sickly, and disabled boy, a direct product of the very generational inbreeding that was meant to strengthen and purify the royal line. His tomb, for all its breathtaking splendor, is ultimately a monument to a short, painful, and tragic life, a powerful reminder that the pharaohs were, in the end, heartbreakingly human. They sought literal immortality, and in a way, they achieved it, but not in the way they had intended or would have ever wanted. Today, modern science has become our most powerful gateway into their hidden world. CT scans, DNA analysis, and other forensic techniques applied to the royal mummies have revealed their detailed family trees, their genetic diseases, their diets, and even the likely causes of their deaths. We can now diagnose Tutankhamun's bone necrosis and malaria, identify the arthritis in the spines of the common laborers who built the pyramids, and trace lineage through mitochondrial DNA. We are, in effect, unraveling their most intimate secrets without even unwrapping the linen. The pharaohs built their tombs from stone to last for eternity, and they have succeeded. But instead of housing living, powerful gods, these tombs and mummies have become classrooms and museums, teaching us profound lessons about the heights of human achievement, the depths of our obsession with power and permanence, and the universal vulnerabilities we all share. So, what is the ultimate, timeless lesson these god-kings leave for us today? The pharaohs of ancient Egypt were a walking contradiction, simultaneously mortal and divine, visionary and tyrannical, brilliant and brutal. They commanded the resources, labor, and devotion of a mighty empire to build wonders that still defy easy explanation. They created art, literature, and a system of governance that endured for millennia. Yet, they lived in a state of constant, low-grade fear, fear of upsetting the cosmic balance, fear of assassins in their own court, fear of the vengeful ghosts of rivals, and the deepest fear of all, a failed afterlife. Their lives were a relentless, public performance of divine perfection and unwavering strength, a performance that often masked very human insecurities, physical frailties, and emotional needs. In their desperate quest for eternity, they ultimately became the most prominent prisoners of their own overwhelming power. They remind us that no amount of gold, grand monuments, or absolute authority can truly shield a person from their own fundamental humanity, from the anxieties of mortality, or from the simple need for genuine connection. They sought to conquer death itself, and in their failure, they became infinitely more relatable, more complex, and more human than the stone idols they worked so hard to project. Their story is not just one of gold and glory, but a timeless, profoundly human drama about the seduction of power, the nature of belief, and the universal, desperate desire to be remembered, to matter, to leave a mark that outlasts the brief flicker of a single lifetime. They teach us that the relentless pursuit of a legacy can be just as destructive as it is creative, and that the heaviest crowns are not made of gold, but of expectation and isolation. If you found this journey into the disturbing, dazzling, and deeply human world of the pharaohs compelling, if it shifted your perspective on these ancient rulers from distant gods to flawed, fascinating individuals, then do us a great favor and like this video. It truly helps our channel, Winds of Thought, continue to bring you these deep dives into the forgotten corners of history. And we are genuinely curious. Share your own thoughts and reflections on the pharaohs in the comments below. Thank you for watching Winds of Thought. Keep questioning, keep exploring.